Brandenburg, 800. Chapter 1. Berlin, April 1945. Twilight over the ruins. The April sun of 1945, pale and indifferent, slowly slid across the disfigured face of Berlin, like a powerless physician trying to find a pulse in a body ravaged by a terminal disease. Spring, in peacetime, a riot of colors and fragrances appeared in this year only as a ghostly reminder of the past, bringing with it nothing but the acrid, suffocating smell of burning. That smell, like a shroud, enveloped the ruins, soaked into clothing and hair, penetrated to the very core, leaving a bitter taste on the tongue. The morning air, still clinging to the remnants of winter freshness, was heavy with ash and dust, raised by the ceaseless artillery fire. Every breath scraped the throat and burned the lungs, a constant reminder of the fires dancing through the wreckage of houses, devouring fates, dreams, and the very memory of peaceful life. Through the ashen shroud of the urban ruins, like a timid reproach of life to death, rare, stubborn shoots of green broke through. Thin blades of grass, pale sprouts of shrubs, flowers that had miraculously survived. They clung to life among the debris of civilization, like the final convulsions of a dying nature. Yet even they seemed sickly, unnatural, twisted, a mirror reflection of the mutilated city. Berlin, once proud, majestic, and pulsing with life, had become a lifeless labyrinth of ruins. Houses gaped with empty window sockets, black holes in their scarred facades like the vacant eye sockets of a dead giant. Walls bristled with sharp fragments of brick and concrete, like wounds that would not stop oozing pain and destruction. Streets that had once been noisy arteries of life, full of movement and voices, now swarmed with shadows. Soldiers in worn uniforms, exhausted civilians in ragged clothes, ghosts of the past wandering among the rubble of the present. From the east, breathing heavily, like an inexorable steel avalanche, the Red Army advanced. The thunder of guns, the menacing voice of war, long since become the constant backdrop to Berlin life, sounded closer and louder, inexorably heralding the imminent end. The Western Allies, like birds of prey, circled above the city, methodically tightening the ring of the blockade, cutting off the last pitiful escape routes, the phantom hope of deliverance. In the concrete bowels of the Reich's chancellery bunker, in the very infected heart of this agonized beast, the Führer's bombastic, empty speeches still rang out, full of delusions about wonder weapons and inevitable victory. But even the most loyal, the most blinded by fanatical faith, already felt the icy breath of imminent collapse. Their sunken eyes, feverishly gleaming in the dim, flickering light of smoking lamps, betrayed the panic, fear, and despair they tried in vain to hide behind empty bravado and meaningless oaths of loyalty to their dying idol. Amid this deathly delirium, in the very womb of the collapsing Reich, in the inflamed, poisoned by defeat mind of SS Hauptsturmführer Erich Hauser, a bold, borderline suicidal, insane idea was born. An idea so audacious and improbable that in peacetime it would have seemed pure madness, the fruit of a diseased imagination. But precisely in this chaos of total destruction, in this universal insanity, in the logic of a falling world, it acquired a certain sinister, perverted rationality. Hauser, whose face, slashed by crimson scars from recent battles on the Eastern Front, resembled a crude map of war, and whose gaze, burned with an icy, inhuman fire of fanatical faith, refused to believe in defeat. He saw, in the inevitable collapse of the Third Reich, only a temporary setback, an annoying but surmountable pause before a new, even more powerful leap, before the great, inevitable rebirth. In his fevered mind, like a mad kaleidoscope, flashed vivid, maniacal images of the future, a future in which battle-hardened SS men, the last and true elite of the nation, provided with untold wealth, would retreat into deep shadow, like hungry wolves, licking their wounds and gathering strength for a new strike, so that at the right moment, when a world, exhausted and weary of meaningless victories, once again lost its way in search of a strong hand, they could rise from the ashes and ruins like a phoenix and restore the lost greatness of the invincible Reich. The Deutsche Reichsbank, the impregnable repository of gold, currency, jewels, and works of art, everything barbarically looted across conquered Europe during the years of the Reich's infamous triumph, was the very key to this insane, yet in Hauser's opinion, brilliant plan. The heart of the Third Reich's financial power, even in its death throes, even bleeding, but still capable of giving life to a new, secret, invincible Reich. Hauptsturmführer Hauser sat in the heavy semi-darkness of an abandoned building that had once probably served as a hardware store or a dusty clothing warehouse. Through a gaping hole in the bomb-shattered roof, a faint, dusty light seeped in, feebly illuminating the charred beams and collapsed plaster. The stale air was thick with the suffocating smell of dampness and all-consuming desolation. Before him, on a rough wooden table, knocked together from furniture debris and serving as his temporary headquarters, lay scattered, worn maps of central Berlin, detailed plans of the Reichsbank with markings and symbols and forged documents made with filigree, almost diabolical precision. Every crumpled sheet of paper, every blurry drawing seemed saturated with his obsession, his fanatical belief in the incredible, seemingly impossible success of this mad venture. He was not alone in his madness. In the viscous semi-darkness of the basement, like silent shadows, stood the figures of his team, a small but lethal group of men, personally selected by him, tested by the flames of battle, and absolute blind loyalty to their ideals. Untersturmführer SS Karl Schmidt, known by the ominous nickname The Hammer, the best explosive specialist in their unit, a man of rock who knew neither doubt nor hesitation, only cold calculation and unshakable resolve. SS Scharführer Klaus Richter, a sniper whose supernatural accuracy bordered on animal instinct, capable of hitting a target in total darkness, a dispassionate executor of any order. And, most importantly, they had at their merciless disposal former, broken employees of the Reichsbank. Not volunteers, of course. They had been brutally broken, frightened half to death, and cynically blackmailed, using their weak spots, secret vices, and animal fear of death, all mercilessly dragged to the surface by the war from the depths of their pathetic souls, like dirty laundry put on public display. The quiet, unremarkable accountant Gunther Schneider, constantly trembling with terror, but forced to obey the SS men unquestioningly to save himself and his family. Engineer Franz Becker, pale and haggard, a specialist in complex security systems whose valuable knowledge had become the key to overcoming the bank's impregnable defenses. And archivist Otto Kruger, a hunched old man, keeper of countless secrets and plans, who knew the Reichsbank like the back of his trembling, age-spotted hand, including hidden passages and forgotten underground communications left over from the turbulent days of the Weimar Republic. These pale, trembling shadows of a vanishing past were now forced to serve the present madness of Hauptsturmführer Hauser. Hauser rose sharply, his tall, angular figure cast a long, strangely distorted shadow on the brick wall in the basement gloom. He swept his heavy, piercing gaze over his men as if trying to breathe into their weary, tormented souls a portion of his own obsession, his fanatical fervor. In his hoarse, smoke-roughened voice, steeped in the bitterness of defeats and the fanaticism of unshakable faith, rang steel that knew no compromise or doubt. Tonight, gentlemen, we will enter the very heart of the Reich, into the impregnable vault of its untold riches. We will take what rightfully belongs to us. The gold of the Reich must serve the Reich, even after its fall, even in the ruins of Berlin. This is not mere robbery for profit. This is a sacred act of faith, an act of defiance against the pitiful victors, an act of rebirth. And let the whole world shudder when it learns that the Reich lives, that its heart beats, even in the deepest darkness, that its gold will become the foundation for its new uprising. In the sunken eyes of his chosen fighters, in the heavy semi-darkness of the moldy basement, a responsive spark of dying but still living fanaticism flashed for a moment. They were ready to follow their commander into the very heart of hell, ready for anything, even the most desperate madness, because it was in this madness, in this final desperate gamble, that they saw the last ghostly glimmer of hope, hope of salvation from a city surrounded by hell, hope of sweet revenge on the victors, hope for an unknown future that seemed forever buried under the countless ruins of burning Berlin. But they, the chosen warriors of the dying Reich, blindly believed they could literally tear it from the jaws of inevitable death. And the first decisive step toward this impossible resurrection would be the daring, unheard-of robbery of the Deutsche Reichsbank, an operation that, if successful, would inevitably enter the bloody history of this war, not as a banal crime, but as the last, desperate cry of a dying yet unbroken Reich. Yet none of them, doomed to madness and thirsting for boundless power, yet knew that at that very moment, in the thick shadows of Berlin's ruins, every move they made was already being watched closely by other shadows, far more enigmatic and dangerous than the seemingly ordinary SS men seeking only gold. Shadows belonging to the mysterious sabotage group, Brandenburg 800, hunting in the heart of the dying Reich for something far more valuable and elusive than mere Reichsbank treasures. And their unknown paths, paths of those condemned to madness and craving absolute power, were about to inevitably cross in the agonized heart of the dying city, in the labyrinth of underground vaults and bank safes where the gold of the Reich guarded, not only its material treasures, but also the terrible secrets of Ahnenerbe.